Welcome to The Playful Life. I am your host, Crystal, the Playful Trainer. And as always, thank you to Ron Harlow Media for hosting us on his platform, as well as all of our awesome sponsors that you can find at Ron Harlow Media. Today, I have two guests on the show. They are powerhouse women, just totally, rocking their profession. They're both doctors. And I was so honored to have them on the show, take their time and talk with me about an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, which is body image, eating disorders, and how we navigate through the pressures that society puts on us as adults and children, and that it's really a disorder that doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anyone at any time. And how that does tie into addictions and different things that manifest themselves from issues with body image. So I want to introduce to you Dr. Linda Beecher. She is an MD and she specializes in pediatric medicine, and now she's currently moved her practice more towards helping people with addictions. And Rebecca Mueller, who is a dear friend of mine and a pageant sister, she is also an MD, a doctor of psychiatry as well. And she does have a special certification for helping people with eating disorders. And also she is certified in telehealth, which has been very helpful in the wake of all of the COVID-19 and everybody sort of being in quarantine. She's still able to help a lot of people. And I apologize because the first part of our interview, the first couple of minutes got cut off by the Zoom. So we're going to be jumping right into it as I was asking Dr. Rebecca and Dr. Linda about their journey getting into medicine and what their personal story had influenced them into going into their professions. And I just real quick want to tell you this really cute story that did get cut off from the interview about how they met. They have been friends since college, and Dr. Linda was off in her classes, and Dr. Rebecca was studying with one of Linda's roommates in her room. They got very tired, and so Dr. Rebecca decided to take a quick nap in Linda's bed. And when Linda got back, she found Rebecca in her bed, just taking a nap, real cozy like, and said, "Oh, hi, who are you?" And so they laughed about it, and they have been dear friends ever since. And I am just so humbled by their presence. They're amazing women, and I know you're going to enjoy this podcast.
Way. I think that we would both say when you look at going into medicine, it's always because your own personal life experiences, you want to give something back, you want to help people. That's usually, how you end up in medicine. And for me, even more specifically, I was a kid at St. Jude's Hospital, which happens to be in Tennessee. St. Jude's Hospital, I think it's, obviously a well-known hospital. I was born with a bit of a birth defect, and I went to St. Jude's, and they corrected that birth defect, or at least they thought they did. The doctor was one in training, just like we've been in training. And that doctor happened to, instead of fixing the problem, he actually exacerbated the problem. And so about 9 years later, because I was 2 at the time, 9 years later, I ended up having to have lots of corrective surgeries on the lower half of my body. And so I spent so much time in hospitals, I got to know everybody in the hospital. And, it's one of those, it was a day and age when you stayed for several months, Crystal. So I got to be there for probably about half a year. And by the time I left, I said, I'm going to be a physician. Didn't know what kind, but I was like, I'm going to be a physician to give something back because I had such amazing treatment providers. And then eventually just going through life, trying to figure out who I am, psychiatry seemed a good fit because I think that so many personal life experiences, again, I could connect with the patients, and psychiatry was the right fit. And I know you and I have talked just a smidge about eating disorders and why we have a passion for that. And I'm sure we'll get into that a bit more.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. Yes, thank you so much. I am actually, I see a little note here that has started recording just as Rebecca was giving her answer. So hopefully we'll just sort of circle back on these topics, but I'll have to go back and check. And for those of us watching this podcast know that I'm not like super techie, and it's funny, I'll watch, other people's shows like, Jimmy Fallon or something, right? They're doing their shows from home, and I'm like, they have a team of people doing these videos for them. Like, I'm positive that they're not like producing this stuff on their own. So here at Ron Harlow Media, like, we are all self-produced.
You're a small team. There it is.
Right.
So
yes. Excellent. So one of the reasons why, Rebecca, I wanted you on the show today is, or even how this kind of all got sparked. I'm sure you filled Linda in on this as well, but that we prepped for a pageant together, Mrs. Indiana America. And through that, I was kind of helping you out with some personal training. And I feel like you were helping me out with some psychiatry on the side here. And I don't even know if you knew it, but I felt like, you were really supporting me along the journey as well. So, but one thing that we maybe had noticed, or something that kind of was in the back or front of our minds during that preparation period, was that idea of a positive self-image and body image, and how, while pageantry really celebrates, being feminine and the female experience, and of course the Mrs. pageant is all about being married and, that experience, and celebrates that, that there's a fine line between wanting to be healthy and fit, and sort of how oftentimes we can cross over that line to the other side where it becomes unhealthy. So I know that we had also talked, and it's interesting because Linda, I know you work with children with your pediatrics, and Rebecca and I had this conversation that a lot of times we see eating disorders in, small, adolescent girls, and we don't really think of it as maybe a disorder that affects adults, adult females or males, but I do think that it does, and it can. And is there maybe experience that you've both had with, working with children in pediatrics and child psychology and psychiatry, that you have seen, maybe that certain experiences are there risk factors for young girls that maybe promote the development of eating disorders?
I think you're going to go first.
Okay. I do treat up to 21. So I really get a full spectrum of adolescents. And generally the parent will come in because there's just something not right. Mm-hmm. And generally the parent will say, I don't know, they're losing a lot of weight, they won't eat. It's usually coupled with some anxiety, maybe some social interaction problems, because adolescence, as we know, is just tough on a good day. Okay, you're, comparing yourself to your peers, how they look. Oh, she's thinner than me, or she's taller, or I like her hair. It's just that time of life. Then there's social media. You toss that into the basket. And then you toss into maybe even societal and family expectations too on top of it. So it can be a tough time. And generally, by the way, it also affects young men too. I like to say that for the record. And the parents would usually come in generally with anorexia. It's more obvious because it's just a significant weight loss, Other eating disorders, for like bulimia, is a little bit harder to tell that something's going on because there may not be a weight loss, but the parents may notice things, I don't know what it is, but like she's fainting, or she's passing out, or she seems dehydrated, or her teeth are looking weird, so it's just something is just not right, but they may not know what it is, So then it's up to folks like me to try to piece it together for them, to try to help them figure it out. So
Yes.
yeah, sometimes it's not so straightforward, you know. So I just say, we're going to sit here and we're going to do a full workup, which includes lab work, which includes a urine analysis. It may include an EKG, for arrhythmias, and a full history, for the females, menstrual cycle history, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
social history. So it can be a little bit, it's not like a one visit type of issue.
Right.
It's going to take some patience and some follow-up. Yeah.
Excellent. Wow. Your patients are very lucky to have that comprehensive, workup and everything from you. I feel like that's very needed and not all that common maybe in medicine. That
unfortunately, yeah,
right,
and
you really
you're
get to
supposed
the
to
heart of
ask
it.
them self-harm questions. You're supposed to ask them, you will hurt yourself, hurt somebody else. I mean, those are questions any pediatric office should be asking, particularly adolescents, starting as low as 9. Yeah.
Wow.
So most people think, when do you start asking those questions? 9.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's third grade, right? To put that in perspective, right?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Whew. Well, thank you for sharing that. And Rebecca, how about you? Some of maybe the risk factors or telltale signs that you see with some of your patients.
I think one of the things I see, and I'm so glad that you mentioned men, because we're kind of always tuning into adolescent, girls to see if they're losing weight or if they're getting depressed because they don't think they look like the other girls in their class. And here again, I want to do this when you are when you feel like we should, but one of the things that I remember about our being in the pageant was kind of almost reliving, not that it was a negative thing, but almost reliving kind of that adolescent girl of I don't look anything like other people kind of thing, and just having to kind of use my faith to work through that, and being blessed with great friends to work through those things. And so I think, again, just looking at our own life issues, because we've all been through teen years, when teens come to see me, it's really easy to kind of see, yes, depression, maybe it's anxiety, but part of what you're going through is not knowing and being secure in who you are and comparing yourself to other people. And surprisingly, perhaps to some people, one of the reasons teen girls enter eating disorders is because usually they get really positive feedback. When they start to lose weight, everyone says, people at school and family, everyone says, wow, you look so great now that you're losing weight. And it's not to say that the girls even needed to lose weight, but that just seems to be a common reaction. So it's a reinforcement. They tend to do whatever it was they were doing, lack of eating and lots of exercise and sometimes dangerous things like purging, vomiting, using laxatives, things like that, because they crave that acceptance and now they're getting it. People are saying, oh, you look good, and not necessarily saying you look healthy, but they're just complimenting you, and it really kind of takes on its own course.
Yes. Yes. I think, Rebecca, me and you have talked about this a little bit, but, I have a history of an eating disorder, and I'm a survivor of one myself, and talk about it a little bit in my book, but that's just very true that, a lot of times it sparks out of wanting to feel accepted or loved or worthy because, there's all these other, sort of things in your life, maybe your family life, maybe, at school, you're being bullied. And when people don't, I now looking back at it, see it through different glasses, right? Through different lenses. But it occurred to me that, it wasn't so much that I was changing physically, because sure, I was losing weight and getting healthy. But I think when you take control of your health initially, and, you cut out sugar and you start to exercise and you start to, you start to lift your head up a little higher and, speak a little differently. And I think the confidence
is initially what people recognize in you. So it might not even be that you've lost a lot of weight, but it's that, wow, something's different about you. You look good, but to children or, adolescents or even adults, we can't often differentiate the difference between, okay, this is just my confidence getting better and how I'm presenting myself to the world, right? My spirit is coming out, my light is shining now, but we see it as, oh, well, I must look better. And then, we want to perpetuate that, we want to just, well, I could look better. I could look even better. I could, and I love that you had brought that up, that reinforcement of that behavior often gets confused for people. So, with that being said, of course, I am very, I advocate for people to want to take care of their health. And sometimes a side effect, I like to say a side effect of being healthy is oftentimes losing weight. And what are some things, I imagine a lot of the audience that watches the show are sort of in that boat, right? They're people who are tuned into their health, or people who are probably watching what they're eating and they want to lose weight, they want to feel better, and they're maybe starting to hear those things from family and friends. Like, wow, you're looking really good. So, as the professionals in the room, what are some things that you can maybe say to these viewers to stay on track with what's important and not get so sidetracked with the image of it?
Ooh, with young adolescents, it's a tricky thing because, like you said, for health reasons, and here in the United States, it's very easy to become very unhealthy. It's like a balancing act. On one hand, you want to encourage, by all means, a healthy diet and exercise. But on the other flip side of that, you want to make sure that they know that they are accepted and that they're loved, and that they're doing it more to be healthy and not for acceptance. Okay. I found that the LGBT community, particularly the young men, they're going through a lot of stress, and the way for them to feel a sense of self-control is they won't eat. Okay.
Interesting.
So it's a balancing act. It's very delicate. You have to look at the whole family structure and make sure it's not a issue in their family to where they're feeling like they have to perform, they have to be a certain way in order to get accepted. And, by all means, be healthy, eat right, exercise, whatever. But health has to be more broad-based, in that health also means being at peace. Health also means being able to wake up and saying, I'm okay, me in this world where I am, I'm okay, and a lot of them don't feel that. And then that's when you know that maybe something is going to be a little unhealthy about this weight loss. Yeah, so it can be a little tricky. I advocate for counselors to be actually in the clinics if it's possible, So if not, you have to just really watch their weight loss as it coming off. Like, how are you losing this weight? Are you doing some fad dieting? Is it something where you have balanced nutrition? Or are you eating cabbage soup for 2-3 weeks? So yeah, you got to try to maybe do a food diary or something like that, and just to kind of say exactly how are you going about doing this, to kind of let the red flag that something's going on. And of course, the substance abuse, because a lot of you young people will get into taking amphetamines in order to do that. And that's, again, a very tricky area to get involved in. So, yeah.
Wow, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rebecca, what would you say to that?
Well, just kind of, adding on to what Linda said, I think a lot of times what we're seeing now, you know, teenagers are often mean to each other. You know, they're going through that phase because they feel insecure about who they are, so they're going to be mean to other people. And one of the first things they do is they'll pick on you about your weight. And you know, I have seen so many times where I've had you know, folks come in because I'm a psychiatrist, and I will say to them, I'm like, you are beautifully, wonderfully, awesomely made just the way you are. And the more that you become convinced of it, the less other people will kind of get a sense that they can pick at you with it. But it's very hard. I mean, I know being, you know, generations, plural, ahead of them at this point, you know, it's really easy for me to say that. But, you know, and sometimes it brings me to tears. It's just very heartbreaking to see these precious young people come in and they have begun to hear what other people said they were. And I'm like, when their voice is louder than yours, then that's when you need to see a therapist. You need to get, you know, professional. And it's really just a cognitive retraining. You need to hear your own voice of how wonderful you are more than those people who have something negative to say. So that's been my experience.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I do feel with recovery, you know, my own recovery and some of the people around me that have recovered from addictions even, you know, having a higher power, having God in your life and understanding that, you know, there is a power greater than you that can help you through it. And I remember, you know, it being said to me, you know, who was I trying to impress, you know, when I was sort of at that point where, you know, near hospitalization and just some, you know, episodes happening with my health. And, you know, my dad said to me, you know, are you trying to impress God or someone else? Because, you know, God is the only person who, you know, his opinion is the only one that matters. And he loves you the way you are, you know, and so that was huge, you know, for me getting on the road to recovery. And, you know, I don't think eating disorders are very different than addictions. I know it's weird to think of it like that because this is the absence of food, right? Not necessarily the addiction to it, but eating disorders, right? I mean, can that include being addicted to food too? Would you consider that an eating disorder as well?
Oh yeah. Anything out of the norm of what is just a good health, you know. I mean, it's like any extreme of that, you know. If you're a binge, you know, eater, you know, you would have obviously complications from that, you know, obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes, and you know, so that's another extreme. And that even crosses over into psychiatry, where people will just have, you know, no satiety because maybe that's the thing that makes them feel good. You know, that's what makes them feel better. That's what gives them their dopamine surge. That's what makes them feel like great about life, you know, is to have a lot of food around. So that's within itself an issue. So either extreme of that spectrum is, because I've had children on that end of that spectrum too, which was, once again, back to the food diary. It doesn't change for either end. And kind of looking like the whole family dynamic, you know, because everybody's different. Everybody reacts to stress differently. While one person may not eat, the other person may overeat, you know.
Yes.
So you got to kind of just fish all of that out, because either way is not healthy. You know, and I think that's what's a little tricky with, let's say, an anorexic versus somebody who's overweight. While the anorexic, as they're losing weight, oh, you look good, you know, which is a negative type of reinforcement. The person who's overeating, they may get badgered even worse for the overeating. So now they're closet eating.
Yes.
So now they're getting bigger, which makes the problem even worse because now they're getting depressed. So, you know, either end, it can be tricky.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What a great thing to highlight. And I just had this conversation with one of my clients the other day. We were talking about that idea that food is, like you were saying, it's a celebration for a lot of people. And it's also like a way to kind of make you feel better. And we play this game with ourselves sometimes, like, oh, I had a hard day, I earned that glass of wine, or I earned that piece of cake, or, it's like, I deserve it because I had a hard day. But then we have the days where we're like, all right, like, I got the sale, or, I had an awesome day. Like, yeah, bring on that piece of cake, bring on that glass of wine. And it's this, I feel like both are equally as unhealthy, but I think culturally and societal wise, we do these things, and they're culturally and society wise accepted to, sort of feed the feelings or celebrate the feelings with food. And so it could be really tricky. And I want, hopefully, people to understand that that's normal, and it's something that a lot of people face, right? But it's not impossible to overcome.
No.
And especially if you're able to find, good providers to help out, and because you need support and guidance along the way.
Right. Yes. So I'd love to just sort of maybe steer the topic away from such seriousness for just a second. And Dr. Linda, I know you said that you're currently residing in Nashville. I know you're visiting Indiana right now, but you're from Music City, but originally from New York. And so how did you end up making the move to Nashville? How did that come about?
Story of my life in less than 2 minutes. Oh, gee. I mean, like a lot of people, you get out of high school, you go to college, and then once you go to college, that really opens up your world. Then from maybe your little hometown or whatever. So after college, it was a sense of, hey, I don't have to go back home. I can go anywhere, So I kind of bounced around, and I ended up in medical school in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I love Cincinnati, another great city. But then for residency, I was in Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
So, because that was a good pediatric residency program. So I said, okay, I'll do that. So I guess I've always been kind of the one that's like, home is where the heart is, I can just about land anywhere and say, hey, this is, a kind of cool place to be. So, but when I met my husband, he was already living in Nashville. And I was kind of like, well, I guess let me go check Nashville out, and I just loved it. I mean, just the culture, the music, I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. So away I went.
Awesome. Yeah. The rest is history, as they say, right?
What are the things about Cincinnati that were really amazing?
Oh, well, it so happens. She graduated like 2 years ahead of me. Okay. And she already, had done her residency. So by time, because I took some time off between undergraduate and graduate school. So, which made me even a little bit further behind in my training. So when I got to medical school, she was already, you're in residency. Yes. And she ended up doing her residency in Cincinnati. So it was weird. So I was walking around as a med student, and I'd be in a hospital, I'd run across her.
Wow. Yeah.
Doing her residency. So yeah.
Well, that's
so
great.
Each other like that.
That's just the honest. That's really what it was about. That I was in Cincinnati.
Yeah. I think you were there ahead of me.
I was.
Oh yes,
yeah. And Rebecca, so you're kind of a transplant to Indiana too, because you're originally from sort of more the East Coast, right? And ended up here.
Oh no, I lost my Southern accent thanks to the Hoosiers, but I am originally from Kentucky. And the fact that you that says that, everybody in Indiana has succeeded. But yes, it's more than 20 years ago. Oh gosh, but I'm originally from Kentucky.
I never knew that. Wow. I knew that you had spent time in Ohio and yeah.
Yes.
Oh no. So I would love to touch a little bit on, of course, because I have you both here and you're both doctors and I just love to pick your brains, about, of course, what's going on in the world right now, with COVID and this pandemic and, being both medical doctors. Dr. Linda, let's kind of start with you as far as how has this changed maybe, your practice or what that looks like, and has it affected that very much? And
Oh yeah. I don't know if there's a medical profession anywhere probably at this point on the planet that hasn't affected. But you have to do what you need to do to stay safe, to keep your patients safe. So thank goodness telehealth, telemedicine is there for that. So we were already doing some anyway, but we switched to total telehealth for a while, and it ended up not being so bad, particularly with addiction. And it's just a different interaction with your patients if you're used to having them right there. And and at first it took some adjustment, particularly I think on the patient's end, but gradually I think they got used to it. And then we just had to modify other aspects of medical care, which is like, how do you collect labs and that kind of thing. But we kind of all figured it out.
Yeah. And with the pediatrics, I don't know very much about how this illness affects children or the younger generation. But have you seen cases in children or symptoms, or what does that look like for those patients?
Well, honestly, I'm pretty much now full-time addiction. So I haven't actually done pediatrics per se, probably in a couple of years. So I haven't really treated it.
So with your addiction patients, have you noticed any trends that have changed with, like, say, for instance, people being at home and being maybe cut off from the world and their friends and their family? How has that affected that world?
We were first a little worried because we know with isolation, some folks don't do very well because you can't go to your meetings. There's some family isolation. So we were kind of nervous of an increase in relapse. But as time kind of went on, we noticed that people were doing better than what we thought,
Awesome.
And that there was just a few cases where people were like, I'm really lonely and I think I'm going to use just because, I'm maybe getting depressed and social isolation. But it wasn't as bad as we thought. One, because, you think you're alone, but people actually have connections. Thank goodness for technology.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then people had families and friends and things. And some people just refuse to social isolate. So.
True.
I can feel that. So how was you with psych though?
Well, first of all, a couple of things. I noticed that, and we might talk about this in a minute, but she is going to be doing pediatric addictions, which is very unusual. But it's unfortunately a real problem. So so she's going to get to combine her pediatrics with the addictions and treat a unique population that, quite honestly, most of the other addiction specialists, they don't want to touch the pediatrics. But the pediatrics still have the same, they have need of a provider, and many providers are nervous. So it's so good to have that mixture of pediatrics and addictions.
Wow.
And I don't know if that ties into COVID. It might, because one of the things that I noticed, they started posting statistics that 25%, so 1 in 4 people were drinking at home heavily. And I think part of that was, depression, that you can't leave your home, anxiety because when you went to work, you had a break from your children, from your spouse even, normal healthy things. And then of course we had some families that had domestic violence tendencies, never getting to have space from each other, caused more triggers for that. And so we've had just, unfortunately, a multitude of mental health problems. And for many, turning to substance use has been kind of a COVID coping technique. They closed many things, but what you probably remember, Crystal, is the liquor stores were able to do orders, takeaway orders.
Yes.
We even began to be able here in the state of Indiana to get takeaway mixed drinks from restaurants, which was something we could never have before because of open flask. So, you go get your Mexican.
I didn't know I could go get a margarita. I had no idea.
Get a margarita. I mean, that was just so sorry to make that face in the camera, but I was just like, oh my God. And so I think that what we've all seen, and this brings in the Playful Trainer, because most people probably don't know I am a client of the Playful Trainer. Thanks to COVID, we got depressed, we got anxious, people started drinking and certainly using substances more often. So our need for mental health and addictions went up, and no surprise, we began to eat more. And all of a sudden, we had people that were realizing maybe they needed to have some encouragement and assistance from a personal trainer, yours truly included. And, I have to just say, quite honestly, Crystal, the way that you take care of your clients, I know it's because of your faith, I know it's because of your genuine heart, and because of your own struggles. You are a person who says, let's focus on health, let's focus on strength, flexibility, all those things, especially for folks in my age range that have joint disease, just head to toe, and just such a positive heart that you have. You keep me going. And I think that if you're not already overwhelmed, bless your heart, post-COVID, you're going to really be overwhelmed, because all of a sudden people are like, I've been home and sedentary, and unfortunately, when you can't get out and about, you can get really unhealthy. So thank you for being you, and thank you for approaching health and fitness from a perspective of grace, and not beating your clients over the head because you decided to order pizza on top of the margaritas and everything else. She's like, tomorrow's a brand new day, and let's tackle it that way. So thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. I feel like we had something we were going to circle back on that you were speaking on, Rebecca, and I forgot to make a note of it, but with any of that. So as we sort of emerge out of our shells, right out of our homes, and what's some advice to people that might be a little apprehensive about getting back into the world? Because I think that was me. I had gotten really comfortable being in my home and sort of shutting myself off, and I tend to be a little bit of an introvert. So I think now that I'm being a little bit more social and getting out and performing, and sort of this balance of protecting myself from COVID, still, but also just that social anxiety of going out again. I mean, what are some things or tips or advice that you can give people on that?
Oh, that's a tough one. Because we are social creatures.
Yes.
Okay. Humans are not made to be alone. Okay. So even with an introvert, there's usually still some sort of contact you need with someone. Like with you, might be your husband. Okay. So, it's just natural. But trying to protect yourself from a virus as you go out, honestly, I would say follow the CDC recommendations, I believe in those. I do. Face mask. And a little social distancing, which some people, they do anyway. So it's nothing new. But just to see another human being. I think some people need to, I know it sounds weird, even though you may not be able to get physically close, just to be in a setting to where you just see people, is, I think for some people, they're going to really need that. So I would tell anybody, even though we cannot necessarily get physically close like we normally would, that if you take a walk in the park, just to know that you're there and that there's other people there.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
It's hard to explain it. And just to know you're a part of greater humanity, that you're not alone,
Yeah.
I think social media can help, but there's something missing with the connection through a screen, Yeah, I think, and I'm telling anybody, I said, you still can't get close, but take a walk in the park. I don't know, just sit on your front porch and wave at your neighbors.
Yeah, I've actually done that, and I've gotten to know my neighbors a little bit better, and it's really nice. My husband and I don't have a green thumb at all. We kill every plant we try to grow. So my neighbor on one side, she's been bringing me apples and oranges and fruit, and the other neighbor on the other side has a garden. They have kale and zucchini, and I'm like, we're set. We're set. Yeah. So it's nice. But if I hadn't been sitting out on my porch, and maybe nurturing those relationships, we probably wouldn't have had that. So it's been a real blessing.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we were talking about was, getting back out into the community. And I think what you experienced, Crystal, a lot of people do, the anxiety of, how serious is this virus? What is my risk? And if I get out there and I'm protecting myself with other people honor, the need to protect me. We have to protect ourselves and protect others. And this kind of is a cross specialty condition. In psychiatry, we're getting lots of people who are having panic attacks, full-blown physical panic attacks. Lots of people going to the emergency rooms thinking they might have a heart attack. They're actually having panic attacks. And then the ER's treating them appropriately, but unfortunately not letting them have any medicine to go home. So this is kind of a lead into something you and I spoke about earlier, is that we've noticed there is an increase in use of benzodiazepines, which are fine when taken appropriately as prescribed. Many people, because of the severe anxiety of, what has been happening in the country and the world, they are overtaking their benzodiazepines a bit. And
would that be like a Xanax?
Yeah.
For instance?
Yes,
okay.
It is correct. Yes, it's Xanax. We'll just sprinkle this real quick. Klonopin, Valium, Librium.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. So we were talking about this, Crystal, that we're seeing more and more of people, because of the panic, wanting benzos. And unfortunately, some people handle that well, and some end up overusing them with an addictions issue.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you ladies should have a practice together.
It has been suggested. But I don't live in Indiana.
Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe we could put together like a telehealth center, and I could be the gal there for helping people with their weight loss and nutrition, and you guys can sort of help with the other aspects of it. That'd be a cool thing.
I'm up for that. If you get it started, Crystal, I will sign on the dotted line.
All right.
I am up for that.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, ladies. I just want to honor you so much for being here and taking your time. And I know, Linda, you're on vacation a little bit, so thank you for talking with me today and, sharing, your life and your expertise with us. And, maybe let's leave people with maybe some resources or places, if they're watching this and saying like, oh, that might be me, right? I might be towing the line there. Like, where are some places they could start to find maybe the help they need?
Well, the world we live, there's the great old internet. What they can do is go to AMSA website. That's ASAM. And if they have an addiction, they can go and find a provider in their area. Okay. Because we're all listed with the federal government to provide services. So that would be my first thing, is just don't suffer alone. There's strength in knowing that you need help. Okay. And getting it. It's more of a weakness not to get the help. So there's nothing wrong with going online to whatever area you're at and just say, I'm going to, search up a provider that can help me, deal with this, and there's plenty of them out there. There's plenty of us out there. So
great. Thank you.
And we have teens, who have parents that have been probably using a little bit more, drinking a little bit more since COVID. And there's lots of resources for those teens. They don't have to suffer in silence. Most counties have Al-Anon meetings for family members. And also, that's my kind of connection to eating disorders, because one of the triggers for the eating disorders is when teens feel that they don't have control over things that they're experiencing in their families. And so just encouraging them to seek treatment rather than resorting to their own methods of controlling emotions and environments through unhealthy mechanisms, eating disorders, but just encourage them to reach out to their family physicians. Mental health facilities are certainly sometimes a little bit of a time lapse to get into, so starting with the family physician. And surely if they are already deep into habits of the eating disorder, then they might look at a specialty center. I think I spoke to you, Crystal, and Linda knows I rounded for Selah House earlier today. Selah House, we're a Christian-based treatment program. We will take everyone and treat them and love them. Just being real honest that our whole program is Christ-centered, because with your faith, you have a much better chance of being healthy emotionally.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies. And I'll be sure to, link that down, at the bottom of the video, and of course, give love to you and your credentials, and let people know that they could, find you if they're in your area, because we probably have some folks down in Nashville.
Google.
Yeah, good old Google.
Yeah.
That's it.
I could just tell that when the two of you ladies get together, it's just a hoot.
Yeah. We only give away our age, but we've known each other for what, 35 years, I think?
About, yes.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time.
I was talking decades, see? I was kidding.
Since the cradle, obviously. Since
We love you. Oh, the secret's out.
Yeah. People want to get out the cafes. I think that when they were 19,
We've been looking forward to this all week, so thank you for having us.
Good, excellent. Oh, it's so wonderful. Well, enjoy your time together, and God has blessed us. Right now, it's July, and we have just absolutely gorgeous weather. So
yeah.
I hope you're taking advantage of that too. So safe travels back home for you, Dr. Linda, and thank you again. Love you both.
Hugs and kisses.
Yeah, right. Elbow. Yeah.
All right. Good to see you. Take care. Thank you for everything.
You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, sweetheart.
Thank you again for being here. I am so honored that Dr. Linda Beecher and Dr. Rebecca Mueller joined me on this podcast. I hope you found something interesting, and if you know somebody that could benefit from this information, please don't keep us a secret. Share this podcast with somebody that you love that needs to hear this message. Give give us a like, subscribe to the Playful Trainer, to Ron Harlow Media, and I'll see you next time. Stay playful.